So I've been bike commuting on this Wabi Classic for about 2 months now. Typically about 2 to 3 times a week. I ride from my apartment in Queens to Manhattan. It's about 5.5 miles there, 5.5 miles back, and it's just a great way to actually get out there on the bike during the week. So today we'll talk about the pros and cons of doing it and just how I set this bike up and just some of the things that I've learned over the past couple of months. That way it can help you get out there and bike commute if you want. When it comes to bike commuting, you don't need a specific commuter bike that has fenders and racks and that you're upright and it has wide handlebars. You don't need that. Just any bike that you have that's comfortable, that's fun to ride, that's important, and that is in good condition, good running condition, since this is going to be a bike that you're going to have a time constraint on it, right? If you have work at 8 o'clock and you leave your apartment by 7 o'clock, and it's a 45-minute ride, you only have 15 minutes of a leeway. So if you have a mechanical failure, you're going to be late to work. So the bike has to be comfortable, or the bike has to be reliable, but it also has to be comfortable, and you have to have fun doing it. Otherwise, you're just not going to have fun. I would also say that think about your bike parking. If you can bring it into your office, great. You can ride the nicest bike that you own, no problem. Me, I can't do that. I lock this bike up out on the street. This is the, believe it or not, cheapest bike that I own, and I've had this bike for the longest time, except for my first road bike that's kind of tucked away in a shed somewhere else. But this bike, I've had it for about 7 years. It's a nice dark blue color, no stickers on it, so I'm okay. I've actually used to stress a lot about locking any bike up, but I kind of broke that fear in my head, and I'm not worried about it. And even if it's not there, it's not a big deal. That was kind of like a mental hurdle that I had to get over. So you don't want to lock up your Pinarello, your Sunday Best, your amazing disc brake carbon road bike with Di2. I wouldn't lock that up, just my opinion. The rule of thumb is don't lock a bike up that if it's not there, it's going to break your heart. We don't want to get a bike stolen, but it's just part of living in a place like New York City or a populated area. It's just a risk that we've got to take. And the way that I actually got through this risk and just getting through this fear was, if I don't commute by bike, I'm not going to end up riding all week. But if I commute by bike for a few months and the bike's not there, at least I enjoyed it, at least I had fun with it, and I have a lot of other bikes as well, so it's okay. Speaking of having a lot of other bikes, I would not recommend commuting and leaving your bike locked up outside for 8, 10, 12 hours if it's the one bike you have, because if it's that one bike you have and you're riding it on the weekends and all of a sudden it's gone, you're not going to have any bike to fall back on. If it's important to you to actually ride a certain amount of miles, or you're doing some sort of a training plan, just keep that in mind. So you definitely want to have at least two. One that's dedicated to commuting, and then one that's your Sunday best, your exercise one. Now, you could see that my stem right here, you see how I have it inverted right there? I actually flipped the stem, so the stem is upside down. It brings the handlebars a bit further up. You notice that I'm actually using road style handlebars with drop bar levers. I don't like riser bars. Not that I don't like them, but I like these. You get different hand positions. I'm just so used to grabbing the brakes like this, not turning my wrists so that they're flat like that I really like this. So I'd rather flip the stem and have it look all weird and all not cool and be a little bit more upright. Keep sneezing, it's that time of the year. I'd rather have a bike that looks less cool like this than have to actually go ahead and change the route for change out the handlebars for flat bars, because this is just, I'm super comfortable in this. Now, I am still experimenting with this just because when riding this bike, sometimes on the way home, I do get a sore neck. I did have the handlebars pretty low, and the reach is actually a little bit too long for me on this bike, so I either have to bring these brake levers, unwrap the bars and bring the brake levers closer, or I'll just get a shorter stem, but I'm still working this out. So definitely it goes with comfortability. You know, a good mixture, what I go for is a good mixture of speed and comfort, which is why I actually enjoy commuting on this bike. Now, this bike is also a single speed. Let me just do this. This bike is also a single speed. As you can see, I'm running 48 tooth in the front and I'm running an 18 tooth in the back. I actually can't back pedal because the chair is right there, propping the bike up. But yeah, 48-18, it's doing all right. It's a bit tough on the hills, but it's it's okay. It's okay. I'm getting stronger. Fenders, I have some minimal fenders right here. I have them zip tied on so no one steals them. They've been there. I don't remove them at all. I've got a little basic one in the front. I don't ride this in the rain. I don't commute in the rain, and I won't be commuting in the snow. So that's a big thing. I should have said it first. If you just commute on if you're just commuting on nicer days, even colder days, but if you're commuting on dry days, it's definitely going to make it a lot easier and make commuting a lot more approachable than if you're just going to commute in all weather, right? This is not a good all weather bike, hence the rim brakes, the skinny road tires, the road position. Have I ridden this in the snow down the street? Yes, I actually have, just for a few seconds, just to see if it was actually possible, but not really the bike, not the correct tool for the job. So riding in the rain, I wouldn't do it. If you live in a city, New York has, believe it or not, the best subway system, the best mass transit system in the world. Even though we have delays and tons of issues down there, we all know it. If you're from New York, you know what I'm talking about. But it's cheap and it does the job better than anyone else, honestly. So I would just use the subway if it was raining, if it was snowing, if it was super cold, or if it was super hot. We're currently going into the winter season, but that's going to make things a lot easier because you're not going to have to actually invest in a commuter bike that has disc brakes and fenders and this, that, and the third. So, single speed bike, that's what I'm comfortable on. We went over the position. When it comes to whether you ride single speed, whether you ride fixed gear, whether you have a geared bike, internal hub, just whatever you pick, make sure you're comfortable with the gear ratio. Make sure that you're comfortable with the bike and whatever hills you might have. I actually am running gator skin tires, as you can see right there. Reason I'm running gator skins is because I had a set of Grand Prix Four Seasons and I actually got a puncture on them, believe it or not, on top of the Queensboro Bridge, mind you. So it kind of was like, I used to run gator skins a long time ago. Not my favorite tire, but honestly, I'm pretty impressed in these gator skins. They're zippy, they're fast, they're grippy. Again, I don't ride in the wet. Just starting bike commuting, start out in the dry, in the decent weather. Don't ride in the freezing cold. Don't ride in the blazing heat. Don't ride in the rain. Don't ride in the snow. It's just going to be a lot easier and a lot more approachable. Back to bike. Under here, this is a Brooks leather saddle. These are the only saddles that I use, and mainly you could see what I'm wearing today, right? You can see what I'm wearing. So the nice thing about Brooks saddles is that if you are wearing nicer clothes, if you're wearing khakis, if you're wearing chinos, this saddle is not going to rip your pants apart. Even wearing jeans, the saddle's not going to rip your pants apart. Brooks saddles are very expensive and people know that, which is why I always just keep this rain cover on here. It helps hide the fact that it's a Brooks saddle, $130, $150, whatever it is, but it also helps because sometimes if I've worn khaki colored pants and you do get some like grease marks from the saddle, probably just from the conditioner that you use for them. So again, very comfortable between the saddle, the handlebars, the 28mm tires, the rim brakes, very, very comfortable. Let's talk more about those tires. These are a size 28mm. This is my favorite tire, my favorite size tire for riding on the road. Unless you're doing gravel, even light gravel, they're fine. If you're doing medium to heavy gravel, I would say definitely do a 32, 35, or 40. But 28mm tires, perfect. I like 30mm tires as well. I've tried 32mm tires, too slow, too sluggish. 28s, perfect. I've also tried 25 mils as well. 25s are alright, but 28s, you just get that extra cushion. Tubolito inner tube in the front, a cheaper ride now inner tube in the back. TPU tubes for the win. I know, just TPU tubes. I don't like tubeless. Tubeless it's for the birds. Too messy. The carpet would get screwed up in here. Anyway, run these at about 80 psi. I'm about 200 pounds. Fully loaded, I'm probably 240. Not 240, geez, 220 at most with the backpack and everything. 80 psi, I leave them at 75 psi sometimes. Totally fine. No issues at all. No pinch flats. Brakes. Rim brakes. Rim brakes, rim brakes, rim brakes. We love rim brakes, don't we? Some of us love them, some of us hate them. Rim brakes are great. They work well. They're cable actuated. You really don't need to worry too much about anything. Easy to clean. There was actually one day that I was doing something. There was one day I was doing something on this bike a little while ago, and I did something. That's what it was. I fell going super slow. I fell off the bike, and when I pulled the front brake, this one over here, there was some friction in the lever. So as I was looking at the bike later that night in this room, I decided to replace the inner cable in the front brake. And then I said, you know what, I haven't done it in over a year. So I replaced the inner cable in the rear brake as well. It took me 10 minutes. I did it with an Allen key and a pair of clippers. So rim brakes for the win. There's nice things about rim brakes. Of course, you can't run anything wider than a 28 millimeter tire if you're using these Ultegra rim brakes. But these Ultegra rim brakes, the best rim brakes. Shimano rim brakes, 105 Ultegra Dura Ace if you want to waste your money. Any of those ones, super good, super strong, consistent rim brakes. You just can't run wide tires. That's what discs are for, right? Or I'm looking at my Wabi Thunder right here, the V brakes if you want to pull your hair out, which too late for me. But yeah, the rim brakes are good. Of course, Salmon Cool Stop pads. Again, if it's raining, I'm not riding this bike, but the Salmon Cool Stops, they just grab really well. All right, so comfortable bike, fast bike in the dry. You've got your nice seat that's not going to shred your dressy pants. You've got your comfortable handlebars that are not too low, not too long. You've got your nice gear ratio. I should mention also, these are Fly Bikes Mesa pedals or Fixation Mesa pedals. They are flat pedals, no foot retention. Don't worry about foot retention. Just wear a pair of nice sneakers or shoes or whatever you call these things with rubber soles. You'll be good. You don't need to be changing out. You'll be set if you set up your bike like this. Now this bike is a full steel bike, no carbon components at all. That's definitely going to help because number one, it's going to be a lot more robust if you're locking it up against the bike rack. Also, a single speed bike with rim brakes helps as well, since you're not going to have a derailleur to get all bent up on the bike rack. You're not going to have any disc rotors by the hub over here, where they're going to get all bent out of shape. So really nice, really simple setup that we've got right here. Carbon, rim disc brakes, gears, Di2, electronics. If you've got an office space that you actually bring your bike into, sure, have a great commute. You know, you're going to be commuting. The hill's going to be a lot easier than on a single speed bike, I can tell you that. But if you got to lock up outside, you got to make some sacrifices and some compromises. So speaking of locking up outside, I did want to touch a little bit on just the lockup and just to make sure you don't get things stolen. You see this little orange thing right here. On the inside of this is actually an old bike chain that I just measured, and then I put it on with the chain breaker, and then I covered it with an older Tubolito inner tube, which is why it's orange. Usually people do this with black inner tubes. I don't have any black inner tubes, so I have an orange one sitting there. It's actually started to fade a bit and it looks a little bit more darker, which I like, but that way I know no would-be thief can just come up with an Allen key and steal my super expensive Brooks saddle. So just something else I wanted to mention right there. Now let's talk about actually riding into work. Right? What I typically wear is, I don't wear jeans. I already told you I wear rubber-soled shoes. I do wear this jacket most of the time. Actually, all the time. Every time I go into the office, I wear this jacket. This is from X-Suit. It's super stretchy. It's expensive for what it is, but it's not as expensive as a suit supply. But it's nice because I can be in a nice leaned over position and it's not going to be constricting my shoulders. Where some of my nicer sport coats or suit jackets, number one, they're too expensive to be wearing it. Well, I wear a backpack with all my suit jackets anyway. But it's just nice to have something that is stretchy. I don't have to worry about putting this in my backpack. I do carry a backpack. Let's talk about how to pack the bike next. So you can see I've got 2 water bottle cages on this bike. I always have 1 water bottle in here. Sometimes I don't fill it up all the way. I just always have to have a little bit of hydration. Even though it's only a 35 minute bike ride, in the morning I just drink a cup of coffee or 2 and then I ride in. Even though it's cold outside, I don't want to be dehydrated. I bonked once. Bonking is running out of energy and like hitting a wall. I don't want that to happen, so I'd rather just carry extra stuff and deal with having extra weight on my bike. Let's talk about how to set this bike up then. All right, so you see these Velcro straps right here. What we're gonna actually do is we're gonna mount a big heavy U-lock right there. I used to carry this U-lock in my backpack. Right over here, this is the backpack. Way too heavy, my back hurt, my neck hurt, it just was not fun. So I always take the extra 5 minutes and just Velcro this to a U-lock, Velcro a U-lock to the bike. So whether you use a backpack, morely if you use a backpack or a messenger bag, you can get away with putting a lot of stuff in there, but I would say one thing you're gonna wanna keep on your bike, if you're using a heavy U-lock like this one, this is a 5-pound U-lock, do yourself a favor, get some Velcro straps and put it on your bike. It's gonna be a lot easier. It's just gonna be a lot more enjoyable. Let the bike carry the weight. See, I have it on the left side, the non-drive side, but right here, this is just a lot easier. It does hit my leg. It rubs up against my leg a little bit, but this is 5 pounds. I don't need that 5 pounds in my backpack. I've already got a laptop and a bunch of other stuff in there. So one thing you're gonna do, you can use a backpack, you don't have to use any other bags, but always keep your heavy lock on your bike. Otherwise, your behind's gonna hurt you, your back's gonna hurt you, your neck's gonna hurt you. It's just not gonna be a good time. Next bag that I use is gonna be this one. This is a Revelate feed bag, and I'll show you why I use it. It just attaches to the stem right here. You got one that goes around the handlebar, and you've got a third attachment point that just goes through the frame right there. And this one is actually perfect because I've got this nice little coffee mug lens coffee mug. It fits perfectly right in there. So I can bring a cup of coffee with me on my bike to work. Save me about $5 or $6 since Manhattan prices are just cuckoo when it comes to buying coffee. This does hit my knee a little bit sometimes when I'm standing and climbing, but it's a 5-mile ride. It's a commute. A commute is different than actually going out there and sprinting and attacking hills, and it's more just about getting there and enjoying the scenery and being happy that you're not walking or stuck on a delayed subway train or sitting in traffic. So this is the first of the handlebar bags. There's another one I'll show you in a minute. The next bag that I attached, this is the Rafa bar bag. You can see I have a little light just clipped right here. Now inside of here, I actually have my tool repair kit. Just have a couple of Tubolito inner tubes, a multi-tool, a tire lever. I also keep an Abus chain lock, and I keep a Kryptonite super light U-lock. Now I'm a little crazy. I use 3 locks to lock my bike up, but this chain lock actually locks the front wheel to the bike itself. So that's actually, whoopsies, don't want to get grease on my jacket. This is actually saving anyone from going up to just stealing my front wheel if they just have an Allen key. So all this stuff lives in my bag right here. Just put it together. And the nice thing about this bag is it's just little clips. Might have to loosen the clips a little bit. Pretty easy to. And then there's a third one that just goes around. And finally, I also use a backpack as well. I keep my laptop, my headphones, just a couple of other items in here. But I try not to overload this just because, like I said, if this gets overloaded, it's just not going to be a good time. So I measured this handlebar bag. The handlebar bag is about 4 pounds. And then this one is about another half a pound. So you figure just having these 2 handlebar bags alone is taking 5 pounds off of my lock. And then my back. I meant to say my back. Speaking of locks, here's another 5 pounds. So the bike is carrying about 10 or so pounds of crap that is not going to be on your back if you take this approach that I'm taking. Now just trying to maneuver the bike around, it's already heavier. Again, we just put 8 to 10 pounds on this bike. how does the bike ride? Hold on. Fifth time I sneezed. How does the bike ride? The bike ride's pretty good. Again, a road bike like this, the Wabi Classic, it's pretty agile. It's a little bit slower. The front end is definitely heavier. You have to be a little bit more careful. But I'm used to those. Like I said, I'm used to these road style handlebars, so I don't have an issue with that. I'm not actually out there trying to weave in and out like crazy. I'm not riding, I don't need that race bike feel when I'm just trying to ride to work and get there in one piece. Like I said, the lock does rub against my leg a little bit, not an issue at all. If I'm climbing over the Queensboro Bridge, what I have to do to get into Manhattan, this does hit my leg sometimes. Really not a big deal though. The bags, definitely happy that I'm doing that. There are other options, like they have the big bike packing bag you can get over here. That's definitely good, but that's going to be very hard to get on and off. Speaking of those bags, I don't use a saddle bag just because it's not as easy to put on and off, and this takes me like 5 minutes to set the bike up and 5 minutes to lock it up because I'm using all three locks, two in the back right here and that third chain lock right there, just because the bike's sitting outside for 8 to 10 hours. I don't want to have to be worried about someone's going to steal my wheel, steal my seat, steal my whatever. You know, I try to do as much as I can. What we were saying though before, you can get rear racks, you can get panniers. Those are all cool, but for me, it's just a little bit more money that I want to spend right now. I already had these handlebar bags. I already had my backpack. I always like my Osprey backpacks. I pretty much living in Queens, living in Astoria, Queens, New York City, I always have a backpack with me when I'm leaving the house anyway, just because when you're on foot, it's like my trunk, right? I keep a small umbrella in there. I keep a hat. I keep a pair of sunglasses, a phone charger. I keep sometimes a lightweight jacket, maybe a flannel shirt, little things like whatever you keep in the trunk of your car is pretty much what I keep in my backpack. So I'm always gonna have my backpack anyway. And the first time I actually started to load the bike down like this, I put my backpack on. I was almost like, do I have my laptop? Do I have everything? So this is just the way that I like to do things. Now, I will say that after doing this 2 times a week just for about 2 months, I think I skipped a week just because it was raining or I was tired. That hill, it's still tough on the single speed. Again, I'm realizing I'm adding 10 pounds. I'm making a 20-pound bike into a 30-pound bike. But it's still tough. And we didn't even put the water bottle in, which is another pound or 2 pounds. So it's definitely over 30 pounds. So it's still tough to go up that hill. Probably because it's a 30-pound bike, like I'm just realizing right now. But, you know, what are you going to do? It's one hill. I don't want to actually go lower on the gearing, so I'll just continue to get stronger. Would I change anything about this bike? It'd be nice to have a gear. After saying all that, it'd be nice to have a geared bike. It'd be nice to have a nice 1x drivetrain bike. If I could just have maybe like a geared hub back here. You know, you don't need a whole 2x11, 2x12 fancy schmancy Shimano SRAM, whatever, you know, E-Tap or whatever they're calling it nowadays. But maybe like a 1x10, a 1x9, even a 1x5. Just something so that you're not muscling up the hills. But, you know, just continue to do it and get stronger. Pros and cons, right? Those bikes are going to be a lot more expensive and they're going to be a lot heavier, and then it's just one more thing you're going to have to maintain. So this is my commuter setup. I like it. It's what I have. I don't know what else to say. It's good for a 30-mile bike ride. 30 miles, geez. Good for a 30-minute bike ride in the morning and at night. Sometimes at night I get a little tired, and I definitely think the subway would be easier to take, and maybe I won't do it back to back, but you know, it's fun, it's cool. I'm getting miles in, and I have to figure out. I'm still figuring it out though. But anyway, what you came here for, you can commute on any bike. The bike that you have, the bike that you're comfortable on, that's the bike you should be commuting on. Just make sure you lock it up smart. Try to use the handlebar bags or whatever bike bags that you have. Try to make sure that it's easy to take them on and off, since you don't want to leave anything on your bike, especially if you're locking it up for even an hour or two, let alone a full workday of 8 or 9 hours like that. But yeah, just keep the bike in good running condition and stay safe too. You know, the point is just to get to work on time and get to work in one piece. But yeah, I do recommend bike commuting. The best thing about bike commuting is by the end of the week, If I commute 5 miles there, 5 miles back, 2 times a week, I come into the weekend already 20 miles under my belt, right? And then doing that over the last month or so, that's 80 miles that I already just rode just by going in and out of the office. So, and if you go in the office 3, 4, or if you're one of the lucky people going into the office 5 times a week, then you're going to be hitting like 50 miles a week. You're going to be getting your fitness up pretty fast. And it's actually pretty enjoyable. The one thing that's nice about it is a couple times I saw one of the subways that I usually take home just sitting on the curve and just sitting there. Not in the station, just sitting there waiting. And I'm like, I wonder how long that subway's been sitting there, because thankfully, knock on wood, I haven't had too many issues on the Astoria Queens line, the NW train, but it happens once or twice where the train just gets stuck, and what can you do? It's train traffic. It's a lot of people. It's a super old system, but pros and cons. But then you're out there with a bike commuting. You're exposed to the cons are you're exposed to the elements. You have to actually do physical work after a long work day. Sometimes you're a little bit worn down, and you got to think about if it's a bit cold out. One other thing too is you can't just dress for the weather. You have to dress as if it's 10 degrees warmer, because if you actually dress warm enough to the point where you're comfortable when you first start riding, you're going to get sweaty. My hands get sweaty first. When I wear winter gloves, my hands get very sweaty. So you just have to be a little bit smarter, and then you end up packing an extra lightweight jacket or packing an extra sweater or an extra scarf, just because if you're walking around for lunch by your office, you have to dress warmer than if you're riding home, because if you're riding home, you're going to sweat more and generate more heat. Anyway, going to leave it at that. But yeah, bike commuting, it's a great way to get in some miles. Definitely give it a shot, and I'm glad I did, because I ride more miles. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. You know what? One more thing. We're going to weigh this bike. Put a water bottle there. Got the scale right here. Zero it out. Let's see how this is going to be like 33 pounds, I bet you. Ooh. Can't grab it from there. Heavy. £31.2. That's crazy. Maybe that's why it's so tough riding this thing up the hills in the morning. Freaking added 10 pounds, 11 pounds to the bike. I think the bike is like 20 pounds without all the stuff on there. It's a good workout though.